We had the announcement this week, Sterling, The Hunt for Gollum. Not something I was necessarily looking for, didn't know I needed, but when they said that Peter Jackson and Philippa Boyens and Andy Serkis were going to be involved, the fact that Peter Jackson is involved in it, people are going to go see it. Peter Jackson, you know, you can make a case, even though I was more of a Star Wars fan, the original trilogy, there may not be a better 3-movie trilogy in the history of cinema than Lord of the Rings.
No.
Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, Return of the King. I mean, I love Star Wars, the original trilogy, but you can make a case that the third movie is not as strong as the first two compared to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It is a masterpiece. And why wouldn't it be? He stayed loyal to J.R.R. Tolkien. And so we got great actors, great scripts, great cinematography, great effects, and a great trilogy. And now he's coming back. And so Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, Peter Jackson, Andy Serkis is directing. And it's covering a small part of the books, right? Around Gollum and when he first gets the ring and the hunt for Gollum. So what cameos will we see? Legolas, Aragorn, Gandalf, you know, that remains to be seen who they bring in. But the bigger question is, it's coming out expected in 2026. And Andy Serkis is directing it. And we also have something else that's scheduled to be released, not in the theaters in 2026, but we have somebody else that was playing around in cinemas in the early 2000s around the same time of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that's Harry Potter. And so
that's a Max, HBO Max.
And they are going to be releasing that over HBO Max. And so the initial word on Harry Potter was that they were going to do a season for each book. But what ended up happening is HBO's Casey Bloys said the idea for the books was 10 seasons over 10 years. That's bold. But what's really cool about that is if they do 10 episodes in a season, which we don't know, and an hour or more for each episode, you're talking about 100 hours. A potential of 100 hours of Harry Potter content. And Harry Potter fans, if you get that right, because J.K. Rowling is behind this, then that could really excite people. Going back to Hogwarts, getting into the Ravenclaw.
Got to get that casting right, though.
You know, you do got to get the casting right. And look, there's going to be people upset regardless. But again, if the goal is Warner Brothers sticking it to Disney, and we already saw them stick it to Amazon this week with House of the Dragon dropping the trailer 45 minutes after Rings of Power's trailer came out. So we know Warner Brothers sees this for what it is. This is war. Yeah. This is the content war. So it's theaters, it's streaming. And I think it is no coincidence that we've got a Lord of the Rings spinoff coming in the same year estimated as the Harry Potter franchise coming back, a reboot on HBO Max or Max. They sense that they can take market share from Disney, and just like Universal with the parks, adding to their parks because they're taking market share from Disney from a visitor standpoint. So, you know, I think this is fascinating. Let's first get into The Hunt for Gollum. You know, and we have an animated series coming out, the War of Rohirrim, that is coming out. So, what do you think about The Hunt for Gollum? First of all,
I mean, that's not my ideal story, but I think
kind of strange
the fact that you have Peter Jackson behind it, and I think anything that distances itself from Rings of Power
is a good thing.
Is a good thing
because it's garbage.
Yeah, I mean, just act like that doesn't exist.
I can't even take that seriously. I can't.
No,
I stopped 3 episodes into season 1. I don't care to watch any more of that.
No, I don't either. I think it's kind of funny to just watch them undercut them. You know what I mean?
and they're doing that. There's no doubt that they're taking shots at him, right? They're like, this is the legitimate spinoff of Lord of the Rings because it's got Peter Jackson.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, is it what I hoped for? No, but I mean, with the people behind it, I think I'll still go see it, right? Of course. So I mean, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's not where, if you were to ask me where's a place to start for a spinoff or some type of story, you know, I would not have picked The Hunt for Gollum. It's such a small part of the book. But you know, a couple things that people may not know, unless you're really steeped in all things Lord of the Rings. is Andy Serkis is directing it. Not only going to be starring as Gollum, but he'll be directing it. And then you had, a group of writers that are coming in, and again, you've got Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, and you've got Peter Jackson, and so let's talk about real quick. According to Deadline, Peter Jackson said there's much more ground to cover. The Gollum Smeagol character has always fascinated me because Gollum reflects the worst of human nature, whilst his Smeagol side is arguably quite sympathetic. I think he connects with readers and film audiences alike because there's a little bit of both of them in all of us. We really want to explore his backstory and delve into those parts of his journey we didn't have time to cover in the earlier films. It's too soon to know who will cross his path, but suffice it to say, we will take our lead from Professor Tolkien. People can bash the decision to do Hunt for Gollum. They can be excited about it.
Seems like they already have a lot more respect for the source material than
right out of the gate.
Right.
Than the idiots at Amazon with Rings of Power.
It's going to be a more inclusive take for modern audiences. They didn't go that route. So
yeah. So they made a point. Initially, I thought Andy Serkis. Is that a good choice? But Peter Jackson says, he
did the voice acting for the original and the motion capture for the original characters.
He has the energy and imagination, and most importantly, an inherent understanding of the world of the story that is needed to step back into Middle-earth. We've collaborated on 8 films together, and each time it's been a fantastic experience. There's no one on Earth better equipped to tackle Gollum's story than Andy. At the end of the day, this is a way for Warner Brothers to stick it to Amazon and to take market share from Disney. And the second part of this, as we mentioned, was Gollum's theatrical counterpart in the early 2000s, Harry Potter. And, that has the backing of J.K. Rowling, who, quite frankly, probably looks forward to recasting the characters from the movies because they've bashed her over the last few years.
A couple of them are insufferable.
And yeah, so to me,
Harry and Hermione are like, that's the biggest roles they've ever been in,
and it's hallowed ground. But they've really crapped on her, and
God, man,
it's her world. She built it,
Yep.
and so it's going to be interesting to see, what they end up doing. But they took meetings with writers, and they narrowed it down to Kathleen Jordan, Tom Moran, and Francesca Gardner. And again, according to Deadline. And Gardner wrote on Succession. So there's a connection there with HBO, Max, and Warner's. Or that was on HBO.
I've never seen that, but I heard it
very
was
well written. Great,
completely different.
It's different
genre though.
Yeah, and Gardner also did his Dark Materials, but that wasn't my favorite. But I think that the pedigree is there from a writing standpoint, and so we'll see between that writing team and the involvement of J.K. Rowling. But again, as you mentioned, the casting. As soon as we see the casting, people are gonna. We're gonna have videos galore on the Harry Potter casting. So, but we know J.K. Rowling has been involved with the meetings with the writers.
It's critical though, because if they get that wrong, it won't go 10 seasons.
No.
That's something they have to get right.
No, but look, at the end of the day, David Zaslav, who runs Warner Brothers, when he had the meetings in London with Casey Bloys, he didn't mention Fantastic Beasts. So they're all in on this world with Harry Potter and Hermione and Ron.
Fantastic Beasts would have been just fine if they kept Johnny Depp.
It would have been much better.
That's why, and Mads Mikkelsen's an amazing actor, but at that point, you already had, Johnny Depp already had that role.
And one of the things Deadline has covered, which you say, J.K. Rowling, how involved is she going to be in this? Well, according to Deadline, her production company in 2022 posted a 74% drop in profits. So then she came out and had her theatrical, the stage play of The Cursed Child, and some money started rolling in there. But look, she's invested in making sure this thing goes right. So, we'll see, when they do the casting, if they get it right, we're going to know that. But we wanted to do a video on it. What do you think about this move by Warner Brothers to try to turn their guns toward Disney, take market share. If you're going to be zeroing in on a large IP, we know they've already done that with Westeros and Game of Thrones, but now with Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, these are the biggest IPs that Warner Brothers owns. And so, is it a right move? Should they be focusing on a reboot of the TV series or doing new movies? What do you think? Give me your thoughts, good or bad. Send me those comments, negative or positive. I'll come right back at you. While you're doing that, smash the like button, hit the notifications bell for future content. Most of all, hit subscribe so we can continue to grow our channel and TCB.